Hi, everyone. It's Fiona here. Welcome back to the Vedic Astrology podcast. This is part two of a conversation with Ernst, Wilhelm, and Ryan Kurczak about how to have more love in your life. The thing is, as soon as I pressed record, everyone started speaking right where we were, and there was no time to introduce the topic. So I'm just here to welcome you back to part two. I hope you enjoy this conversation between Ernst Wilhelm, Ryan Kurczak, and myself about how to have more love in your life. Yeah, and now let's have another deep question as well, because of course, when I first started listening to the course, Ryan's voice came into my ears because when I started learning with Ryan, I came as a life coach. And I remember early in like the very first several lessons that I had with Ryan, we talked about the fifth house and, follow your bliss, change your life. Great. If you've got a good fifth house, you can do that. If you don't have a good fifth house, change your life. This is not doesn't mean anything. It's not an easy solution, not a workable solution. Let's talk a little bit about helping clients inside their chart and helping clients beyond and outside of their chart, because I feel that this course is operating on both of those levels.
Well, I think there's a few things that people really need to learn about their charts, but I really think when it comes down to it, the most important thing are those Lajjitaadi Avasthas. It's like it comes down to that. There are other important things. One of the most difficult Lajjitaadi Avasthas is so difficult because it essentially damages the fifth house, like Ryan was saying. And a good fifth house helps, but at the end of the day, whether we have a big muscle or a little muscle to move forward with ourselves, it's the obstacles in the chart that we have to overcome, which is the troubled Lajjitaadi Avasthas. So I think really understanding those is one of the most important things. I know in my own chart, my troubled Avasthas, which was Mars, my worst planet, has been the biggest, most difficult thing in every aspect of my life. It's the thing that when I screw up, it's always because I screw up on that Mars. And I've had to spend just literally years, like day and day, just this mantra of restructuring how I was using that Mars. And because when it came to that Mars part of the battle, the journey, I guess to say, that's where I would throw in the towel, or where I'd stop doing what I know was right for me. Because essentially, what the troubled Avasthas do is they stop us from living the life that's actually right for us. And it's the road, the roadblock. We're going from Sun to Jupiter, and then we're going to finish up at Saturn. Getting to Saturn is easy. We're just going to die one day, okay? But we have to make an effort to get from Sun to Jupiter. And we got Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter. We have to go through all these planets to really succeed greatly with any fulfillment in our lives. The planet that's the worst of Avasthas is where we get off the right train and we get on the wrong train.
Real quick, Ernst, I don't mean to cut you off here, but we know what the Lajjitaadi Avasthas are because, well, we spend a lot of time looking at them. But it might be good if you're able to just take a moment to kind of give an idea or an explanation of what exactly is going on there.
I'm going to link it to your experience of the fifth house. So 10th house is karma, right? It's our actions we take. It's the most important actions we take. The fifth house is the 8th house from the 10th house. It's the house where we can change our actions, basically. It's the house that changes our actions. What does that? Our increasing creativity, our greater self-awareness. These are all things that cause us to change our actions. Our aha experiences are what causes to change our actions. Now, people want to change their charts. Now, how it works is life manifests in accordance with the 5 elements. First, we have the ether element. And the ether element is the space. We all share the same space of planet Earth. Okay? Some of us are born in Mexico, some in America, some in India, some in Africa. The space that surrounds you is your ether element. All the possibilities in your life are based on that space. You don't get to change that space. You don't just get to go to another solar system. No matter how many fantasy novels you read, you're not going to wake up in a world of magic and dragons. It's just not going to happen, right? So we can't change the space. Okay, now within the space, there's the air element. The air element's responsibility is to create change. That's what its responsibility is. So it's on the level of the air element that we can actually make change. We can't make change on the level of any other element. After the element, we have the fire element, then the water element, and then the earth element. We can't change those. All we can change is the air element, which is where we go in that space, okay? We're moving around, like we're in a room. What part of the room am I going to go into? Now, the planets are literally manifesting along this level. One planet is saying, all right, this is the realm of possibility. Another planet saying, I'm going to push you around this room. I'm going to move you around this room. Another planet saying, I'm going to go for what's in this part of the room. I'm going to make an effort towards what's in this part of the room. But I only am this smart. I only have this much willpower. I've only got this much strength. You know, your efforts are restricted to your ability to effort. So, and then the fourth level is the water element. That's bringing things together because of our wisdom, you know, and our understanding, which is also something that in that moment we can't change. We have the wisdom at any moment to approach anything, right? We can't just say, hey, wait a minute, this moment, put this moment on pause, let me go study more and address this moment. You know what I mean? At any moment, we're dependent on the wisdom we have at that moment to bring something together to a good package. So the only element that has an aspect, the only element whose responsibility is to create change is the air element. So in our charts, if we want to change anything in our chart, all we can change is the air element. And the air element Avasthas are the Lajjitaadi Avasthas. Those are the Avasthas we can actually change. We can't change our Shayanadi Avasthas. We can't change our Dipadi Avasthas. We can't, which are the circumstances. We can't change our Baladi Avasthas. We can't change our Jagratadi Avasthas. But we can change our Lajjitaadi Avasthas. Now, the Lajjitaadi Avasthas determine what part of the room we go to. If we have a bad Lajjitaadi Avastha that says love is being starved, it's going to run to the part of the room where all the selfish people are. And then it's going to make an effort, fire element, to get fulfilled. It's going to be fulfilled on the level of water element. But how fulfilled can you be when you're dealing with selfish people, right? And then it's going to end up with some outcome, which is the earth element, and the outcome's going to suck. The outcomes with selfish people suck, okay? But if a person changes their Lajjitaadi Avastha and they heal that wound that says love is being around a selfish person to love is being cared for, and they go to the part of the room where there's caring people as a result, where that Avastha now pulls them into the part of the room where there's nice people, then their fire element, their water element, their earth element is going to give something nice because they're in a part of the room that actually has nice things. It's kind of like the difference between living in a war-torn African country in America. If you can just get to America, everything in your life is going to be better if you live in one of those really countries where your kids are shooting at each other at the age of 12, right? You know, if you can just get your ass to America, you're going to do so much better. You just need to make this change and go to a different room. We need to go to different rooms in our own psychology.
So Ernst, it's so fascinating what you're saying there. It's a bit of a tangent, but you've linked Lajjitaadi Avasthas with the element of air. Could you link the other Avasthas to the elements?
I don't know. I figure that's something you all should do pretty easily. But I'll let you guys think about that and work it on yourselves. It's not hard. I've given you one. If you know one, it's not hard to figure out the rest.
All right.
Let's see you guys come up with. Maybe we'll talk about that another time.
All right. We've got some homework. Excellent.
Homework. Okay.
Yeah.
So we can change. And what can we change? We can change one thing, and that's our habit. All the Lajjitaadi Avasthas are our habits. Are we in the habit of pursuing love with this idea and this kind of love? Or are we in the habit of pursuing love with this idea and this kind of love? Just like, are we in the habit of smoking cigarettes when we're stressed or counting to 10? You know, if we understand that counting to 10 will not cause us cancer and not make single moms run away from us because of secondhand smoke for their children, we can improve our love life. I mean,
Free advice right there.
if we understand that we can have a good habit that can make things better rather than a bad habit that is sabotaging our lives, and we start changing the habit, we change our lives. We're a product of our habits. We literally are a product of our Lajjitaadi Avasthas. Our reality that we're experiencing is a product of our Lajjitaadi Avasthas more than anything else. And that we can change. I mean, really, it's mostly the product of being born on Earth. But what are we going to do about that, right? We're born on Earth as humans in 1900s or 2000s. We're kind of screwed, all right? But within this concentration camp, we can change our habits and live the best life possible on Earth right now. And the Lajjitaadi Avasthas teach us how to do that.
Maybe this is in a similar vein. When we were talking about in the course, you talked about 4 hard things, and one of them was acknowledging our responsibility.
That you're 100% responsible for yourself, everything in your life. Yes.
That's a whole important video in the course. But as part of that, you were talking about our subconscious, and you were talking about conscious. And were you also linking that with the ecliptic and the planets? And could you say something about the conscious, the subconscious, the ecliptic, and the planets?
Okay, so everything is a symbol or an omen or an emblem, as it used to be called in the 1800s, of ourselves. So your parents didn't come along and ruin your life. Your plans didn't come along and ruin your life by being in that place when you just happened to pop out of your mom's womb. You have the parents you have because they're symbols of your own relationship with yourself. You're born at the moment you're born because the planets are symbols of your relationship with yourself. Now, our relationship with ourselves is the same as our relationship with God. So when we say we're here to have a good relationship with ourselves, we're saying we're here to have a good relationship with God. And how far we've come along that journey is symbolized by our parents. If we had parents that sexually abused us, that means we have a sexually abusive relationship with ourselves. And therefore, we had parents who sexually abused us. That's a heavy thing to acknowledge, but we have to take all responsibility. If we don't take 100% responsibility, we are victims. So imagine a person who can have such a bad relationship with themselves that the symbol to demonstrate that was being sexually abused at the age of 1. That person has a lot of love to give themselves. They have to work on their relationship with themselves harder than average. And we know that because this is their symbol. So whatever our trauma is, we have to recognize that the victimizers, the predators, whatever you want to call them, they're just symbols of how our own relationship with ourselves, and we need to heal that. And it's very painful and difficult to do, but we can't fuck around and be politically correct, It is all about ourselves. There's only one person in every room, and that's you.
Yep.
And everything else is a symbol. If someone loves you and gives you kindness and warmth, it's a symbol of your kindness and warmth that you give to yourself. How do you keep that symbol? Continue loving yourself. When we love ourselves, when we treat ourselves well, we naturally treat others well. We treat others the way we treat themselves. People who've been sexually abused are sexually abusive to others. In some way, they may not tie them up, they might not grab them and just do it, but they will be sexually controlling. They will have sex when they want to and ignore the person the rest of the other time. It's like whatever our relationship is with ourselves, we ultimately relate to others that way. Christ said, love yourself and then love your neighbor as yourself, right? It's the only way it works. Yeah, 100% responsibility for everything that happened. Everything is a symbol of that, showing us what we need to heal. If we have been sexually abused, if a person's been sexually abused, they need to heal a very abusive relationship with themselves. And you'll see people have been sexually abused, the things they do to themselves, right? The things they do to themselves throughout their lives. Like they sabotage themselves, they hinder themselves. They hurt themselves every step of the way, it seems sometimes, It's important not to blame our parents because we're born into that that family because of our relationship with ourselves. And we need to focus on healing that. As we heal that, we forgive the victimizers as well as a natural part of that healing. So we're not healed if we're still haven't forgiven the victimizer. And that's an insane thing of how important forgiveness is. You would think, oh, I'm just going to shoot that bastard no matter what, But we realize that there's no victimizers, and naturally there's a natural forgiveness for the victimizer when we heal ourselves.
Yeah, it's very profound, the content of this course, and it's very profound recognizing the violence that's happening on all levels. So it's easy to imagine that violence on the child, but there's a lot of actors that we're employing in our drama to cause us violence as well, and that's a violent act to ask someone else to inflict that kind of stuff on you. So yeah, it's really
intense. See, there's no innocent personalities born. There's no, there's innocent bodies. A baby's body is innocent, but its consciousness is not innocent. So when the baby's born, the body has to be taught what its consciousness knows. How does it get that? And it gets that from the experiences, the loving and unloving experiences it gets. It's teaching its body what's in its consciousness, actually, That's why we have to go through this abuse cycle. We have to impregnate this new body, this innocent meat suit with the programming of our consciousness through experiences that impact on the meat suit. That happen through the eyes, ears, nose, everything we take in through the senses. When we get abused, it happens through our senses, right? We see it, hear it, smell it, taste it, and so on. And then we have to just continue healing our consciousness. That's what we're here for.
Also, picking into some of the detail of the course, my ears pricked up. You mentioned something about healing 7 generations or representing 7 generations in our awareness. Can you talk a little bit about that generational link?
We're influenced by 7 generations of ancestors. The events, the experiences, the traumas, the joys of our ancestors going 7 generations back is impacting our DNA, the family we choose. The soul chooses the family that all that momentum correlates to that soul's experience with itself. The consciousness with that soul is relating to itself, that developing consciousness. So if we knew stories about our grandparents, like in detail, we would be able to identify, we'd have a lot of aha experiences based on our own life. We could see the chain. Every once in a while, somebody knows a few things about their grandparents. It's the same as if you get a past life reading. If you get a past life reading, you go, oh, I can totally see the connection. You know what I mean? It's the same thing when you start looking at the stories of your grandparents and your great-great-parents going back 7 generations. When you change a habit in your life, when you're a bad avasthas that's not working into an avasthas that is working, you've just supported 7 generations of beings. So it's the most unselfish thing you can do is to reprogram your bad avasthas into working avasthas. And it's an energetic effect. It doesn't mean that if you had your kids and then you fix your bad avasthas, that those kids aren't going to benefit from it. No, the minute you change it, it goes through the timeline.
So then the thought comes, what's going to happen when we're all healed and these avasthas still show up in people's charts, right? Planets are going to go creating those avasthas forever.
So I think the avasthas are going to mean something different in different ages. I think, in 400, AD, in the middle of the Kali Yuga time, again, Sri Yukteswar's calculation of that, not the one that we see floating around most of India. I think about like a starved avasthas means you were literally starved. If you had an ashamed avasthas and you grew up in Asia, something happened that your entire family was shunned. If you were born in the West, something happened that you were shunned, or no one wanted to do anything with you. And like really on a concrete material level, you're experiencing these avasthas. In this yuga, we're experiencing these avasthas on a psychological level. Not so much a material level, but on a psychological level. In the Treta Yuga, I don't know.
See you there.
We'll find out when we get there, right? But I could probably make some guesses. But I don't know if there's any validity to it, but I think we should probably talk about other things today rather than guesswork. And that's over 2,000 years away. I don't usually try to predict out more than 2 or 3 years in advance.
Can I dig into some more nitty-gritty questions, which I'm sure that Ryan will be able to contribute as well? We talked about the sun, finding your true calling, finding your true self. And you mentioned being a defined life path or an undefined life path.
Yeah.
Do you want to say something? Can you tell us a little bit more? Let's have some insider secrets to that one.
Okay. So the first thing is that all of us have an essence of who we are, and that in astrology is symbolized by the sun. And we're here to live the best version of that essence, which is Jupiter. Once we succeed in that, we've succeeded in what we're here to do. And then we can step onto the Saturn boat and go to the other world, okay? Very happily, without sorrow. But it's a big journey to find our essence, and it's a big journey to live the best version of the essence. What I mean by that, let's say someone's a healer. That's the essence. They have the essence of a healer. So they come to Earth, and we're in a limited world. Healing's only so developed. There's only so many different ways that people get healed. There's this kind of medicine, this kind of healing, this kind of healing. There's these possibilities. And the person has to discover, based on what actually exists on planet Earth, the way they can be the best healer they can be. As an essence of a healer, their soul has the ability to snap their fingers and heal a person, okay? But that's not how it's going to work on Earth, They're going to have to find the modality through which they can be the best healer possible. So their life is going to be a journey of discovering, trying things, failing at things, discovering things that work, testing things, refining things, and finding the way they can heal the best, okay? That they can be the best healer they can be. So whatever our essence is, we're here on a journey to discover the best use of that essence, okay? In a very limited world called planet Earth, okay? That's ultimately the journey we're all making. And if we have a fulfilling experience in living our essence, we have a fulfilling life. People think our lives are about having a successful relationship. They're not. A successful relationship is just what gives us the foundation to be our best. It's not the goal of life. The goal of life is to be the best expression of the essence of our soul. And that's the Jupiter is the best expression of that on this world possible, and the sun is our soul. So with that framework, I'll try to answer your question if you ask it again. Okay?
Yeah, what was the question? Let me hear the question too. I want to hear the question because I might have a tag on to that.
Okay, great. You shared in the course about some people are on a defined kind of life path and some are on an undefined life path.
So the point is, once a person discovers their essence, they're going to live the best version of that in a defined or undefined way. So I'm like a defined way. I discovered when I was 20 years old, 21 or something, that astrology was the best possibility for me to express my essence. And so I decided to be an astrologer. Being an astrologer has dictated a lot of choices in my life. I'm on this road of astrology. Now, an undefined person, they don't have a clear road. Their road is determined moment by moment. Where they're going to take their essence, how their essence is going to shine in this world is determined moment by moment. So they don't get to say, this is what I'm here to do. They don't get to say, oh, I'm an astrologer. They'll say it, but it won't prove to be true. They have to really get in tune to just what their essence is and not the form that essence is going to take. And they need to allow that form to change and adapt as much as it can. But they usually struggle with that because we're all programmed to answer the big question, what are you going to be when you grow up? And for undefined people, it's not something that they can ever feel secure and solid in. So even when they say, oh, I'm going to be a writer, they feel no security in that. They're just trying to convince themselves they'll have security as a writer. So it's not that people with defined and undefined ways of being or paths do different things or operate really differently, but it's the security they get from knowing what they're doing. The defined person gets a security. Oh, I know I'm here to do this. The undefined person doesn't get that security. They're floating, and they needed to just have a daily surrender to just shining as themselves day by day without concerning themselves what the label is, what the definition is of them in this lifetime, And it's hard to do because we're programmed into thinking that we're supposed to know what we're going to be when I grow up, And half the people have that, actually. And those are the people who are most desperate to love someone and say, oh, I love this person. And they're also most desperate to say, this is what I'm here to do. I mean, there's a desperation and excitement to it and a constant failure.
These are the undefined people you're talking about.
Undefined people, yeah.
Well, if the defined people can know this is what I'm doing and they do it and they feel it, why can't the undefined people, why don't they just naturally avoid that?
Because we're all programmed to be the same. We're all told, what are you going to be when you grow up? You have to know, or something's wrong with you. So because they don't know, they feel something's wrong with them. They try to find it to make something right about them. So they need to understand, for them, not knowing the road they're on as clearly, as securely is a better word, not feeling anchored in I'm an astrologer or I'm a doctor, is how they're is what's right for them. Because that gives them the flexibility for their essence to shine where it needs to shine. They need that flexibility this lifetime.
I get that, but is that more just defining yourself through something? Like, for example, that question, what are you going to be when you grow up? To me, that seems like that's a rather new question, because a few hundred years ago, your dad was a blacksmith. What are you going to be when you grow up? You're going to be a blacksmith.
It wasn't even something you answered. Yeah.
No. So with the defined and undefined in that situation, would the person who was the defined say, yes, of course I'm going to be a blacksmith? And would the undefined person say, well, I'm going to do it because it's my dad, but my dad's a blacksmith, but I know that's really not who I am. Do you understand what I'm asking here?
Yeah. Yeah. We're in a different age now where there's a greater need for the internal parts of ourselves to express externally than there used to be. In the dark ages, the need was to survive materially. So if your dad had a black ship's moth, the best probability of you surviving materially was to take over his business. It was guaranteed.
Yeah.
But now we're not living to survive. We're living to be more, The suicide rate's insane these days because people need to be, not survive. People with good jobs kill themselves. People with good jobs didn't kill themselves back in the old days, You know what I mean?
Right.
People who had houses didn't kill themselves in the old days. Their survival needs were met and they were good. But now we have a need of the internal finding a more individual and unique expression. And if that need is not fulfilled, people don't feel a reason to live here. We die of that kind of hunger. We die from suicide, we die from the drugs, the pharmaceuticals, the antidepressants that we take to fill that hunger. Whereas before, people died starving on the streets.
But this is also going back to the ages, right? The Dwapara Yuga, where it's more of a self exploration versus, as you say, the survival exploration.
Yeah, right now it's internal that needs to express more.
And what I was digging for there on the defined, undefined, because you mentioned in the course 50%. Can you see it in a chart? Is it something that you're speaking about?
You have to use human design, which is a system based on the I Ching. And with that, once you calculate the chart, you can tell if the person has a colored in G center, as they call it, you're defined. If it's uncolored, you're not defined. Human design has a lot of good foundational things to help us understand ourselves. And the whole idea of human design is to live as yourselves. And it tells you, learn to live as yourself, learn to follow your authority, which I call the inner voice. But it's a very, very difficult thing to do because everyone wants to follow their wounds. Everyone wants to follow their patterns. I actually developed a course on that. I'm just finishing up now on the Lajjitaadi Avasthas, the third course on those, that really talks about how we have habits attached to the different planets that keep us from following our authority. So our authority, our inner voice will say, do this, but we have a habit indicated by a troubled Avasthas that we override our inner voice with. So with the material from that course, if a person learns to listen to their inner voice when they're and understand the mechanism of why they're not because of their troubled Lajjitaadi Avasthas planet, they'll live their human designs without knowing their human design exists. So you don't need to know your human design to live it. You have to heal your trauma. You have to heal your wounds. You have to basically understand and heal your bad Lajjitaadi Avasthas in order for your human design to live, express, okay? So I find it's really hard for people to live their human design, and we can't force ourselves to live our human design. We can't decide to live our human design, because the minute we do that, the mind is skewing the human design, you know? All we can do is follow our authority to find the human design. And thinking more than that just gets us lost. But by learning the Lajjitaadi Avasthas, we can really, really see what's getting in the way of really just following our inner guidance, which is going to lead us to all that potential that's in the human design chart. Because I really see the human design chart as a bunch of potential that's not often lived because people are not following their authority. Instead, they're following the mind, and the mind is just following the traumas and the fears and the subconscious clutter. Really, the mind is just supporting the subconscious trauma in its decision making.
So you talk about human design, but isn't this something that can be seen or gleaned from the D9, the Navamsha chart?
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, this is a very clear thing. It's simply that, does the ego find security here or not? See, defined just means the ego has a sense of security about something. It's established this vision, this idea that makes the ego feel, yeah, I feel safe. See, we trade in, there's two things. There's security and there's the divine. The divine is not secure. The divine is surrender. So in human design, we have these little boxes that are the different energy centers, and they can be defined, which means there's a connection made to them, and therefore they're colored in the chart, or undefined. Where they're defined, we have security. Where they're undefined, we have to surrender. All of us have areas that we've decided to trade in the uniqueness of the divine for security, and other areas that we're open and need to be open for the divine to show us the way. You know, like I've got an undefined manifesting center, which is the center you use for planning things. I've given up. You know me, Ryan. I've given up. Yeah. You say, can you do a podcast? I'm like, I don't know. When is it? 26th? Ask me on the 25th.
Let's do a retreat together. No, I don't think I can plan that far ahead.
Shrishti also has an undefined manifesting center. Together, if we put our charts together, we have an undefined manifesting center. And every time we make a plan to go do something special or go to a restaurant, the restaurant's always closed every single time, or something happens every time. But if we're just bumbling around, not knowing where we're going with no plans, that's when always we end up with in the best building, in the best restaurant, on the best hike. But the minute we plan it, it doesn't work. It never does. When we go on a trip, we'll just jump in the car and step on the gas and see what happens. But the last time we planned a trip, we were like, we're going to go see this mountain in Nevada. We drove all the way up there last fall, and we get there and they had closed the road because of a mudslide. So at that point, we're like, where do you want to go? I don't know. Let's go to Jackson Hole. So we just went to Jackson Hole and had a lot of fun there. So, some people get to actually plan though, and it works.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So it's really funny. So it's a state of when I plan, it's a state of surrender.
Yeah. Which one?
But there's other, what?
Which one was that again? The little line that's colored in?
Oh, it's the manifesting center. That's the third one from the top.
Okay.
Yeah. So people have that defined. They can actually plan an event and they can actually happen that way. And
well, I think one of the things that we can reflect, which is kind of where this second video started, was around the nature of this course. And there is a part of this course that's very guru, like removing the darkness, just really clarifying our definitions and fixing up. I think you used the mirrors as an analogy, Ernst, like all of those circus mirrors that make everything out of proportion.
Yeah.
But towards the end, you also talk about, and I guess this is the benefit of when the light removes the darkness, is that there can be miraculous, very speedy transformations of things as well, because once we see through the pattern, in some ways it can lose its effect. And in that conversation, you talked about 28 days and a lunar cycle. And I just wondered if you could share a little bit more about how that relates to these, like miraculous moments of clarity and change.
Well, I think the way life works is that it's basically all about dams breaking. And dams break the more water's behind them. So as we go through our life and we're growing and growing and growing, the dam, the river is building up behind the dam. It builds up. Every bit of wisdom, every bit of understanding we get builds up until finally the dam breaks. And when the dam breaks, it's overnight. And all of a sudden the dam breaks and the river is flowing down life, which means you have a breakthrough and you're flowing down your life all of a sudden in a way that you couldn't expect it. It's amazing to me that I find within a matter of a lunar month of understanding something, it happens in that lunar month. It's like when you get the 100% breakthrough or the dams actually break, and not just another insight, not another couple gallons of water to put into the lake behind the dam. But I'm saying when that dam breaks, within a lunar month, within that lunar month cycle, you get the miracle. I'll give you an example of my life. So it has nothing to do with love exactly, but it has to do with this understanding. So I noticed that when I got married, I wasn't really in a financial place to get married because I'd been out of the country for 2 years. And when I came back, my practice was like pretty much gone, right? And my teaching was gone. I was still doing ed readings, but all my students had moved out of that county. It was before the internet. I was doing live classes. There was no one around. I had to start all over. I was struggling financially, and I would feel guilty about it a lot of the time. I feel guilty that I wasn't focused on making money. I was doing Gemini, I was studying this, I was sinking into debt. Within 2 years, I had $30,000 of credit card debt at like 19% revolving interest, right? Yikes. And that was with one kid and twins in the oven, right? So it was pretty insane and I would feel guilty, but something in me felt I just needed to keep doing what I was doing. I needed to invest in my researches and studies and so on and so on and so on. And every once in a while, I would notice this would come up. And we were moving forward financially. We got out of that scary stuff. We paid our bills off. We bought a house, got into debt, sold the house, got out of debt. We kind of managed. And as that was happening, I think, I would feel guilty, literally feel guilty. I should work. I should put more emphasis on making money. I should promote, maybe do more readings. I should focus maybe more on money. But then I wouldn't, and I didn't have any pressure from anyone with my own guilt. So I didn't have like the nagging wife saying, make more money. She was actually really cool with it. She'd say, go do a research, So I didn't have that kind of pressure. It was my own guilt in my own mind. Then in July of 2013, I was doing okay. All the bills were being managed, and it wasn't like really stressful, but I wasn't like living a great life. I still driving $2,000 cars for the family car and fixing them every month, I noticed that my mind, what would happen is whenever I start feeling guilty, I would think, I've made this software. We've made this software. Anytime God wants us to have money, he could just have people come buy it, And I've got these videos. So I'd always just say, well, when God wants me to, he can make me wealthy because I've got a lot in production. And so 2013 comes along. I had the astrology videos. I had the software. I had a bunch of audio videos. I had 3 or 4 books or something. And I would always think until July of 2013, I should make more money. I'm feeling guilty. And then I would just get this hopeful outlook. God can make me have more money anytime he wants. I've done so much work. When he wants to, it can happen. And I hope he does it soon. But in that July of 2013, I just was thinking, I hope God gives me more money because it would be better. But I don't feel guilty about not making more money, of trying harder to make money. I've got all this stuff established. I hope it just takes me to more money, And there was not a bit of guilt. That week, this funny guy emails me who I've never heard of. His name's Kapil, KRS. And he goes, you want to be on my channel? I'm like, not really. Okay, yeah, I'll do it. I'll be on your channel. So I was on his channel. And within a week of being on his channel, my students double. my software sales doubled, my reports sales doubled, my book sales doubled. Literally, I doubled my income in a week. But it didn't happen until my consciousness had none of the guilt and all the hope. I later discovered that the way I operate, that when my consciousness is hopeful is when things work. When there's any guilt attached, they don't work. Somehow, over the years, over 15 years or 10, 15 years of my consciousness letting go of guilt and establishing more hope, the minute I was 100% of hope, the dam of my finances broke. And I've been financially fortunate since then. And that can happen in any department of our life. We just have to keep pumping the water into behind the dam until it breaks, whether it's love or money or anything. It's shocking to me when we have breakthroughs how fast something miraculous or new can shift and happen. It's really, really quite amazing. But if it's not happening, it's because there's 0.1% of something that hasn't shifted yet. All it takes is, it's like there's that dam can hold a certain amount of water to the drop. And if you're not having the breakthrough, it's because you still need at least one more drop of something. One other thing I want to mention before we forget is this course is about having more love in your life. It's not about having more nookies in your life. It's not about having a better relationship with your husband in your life. It's about having more love in your life in every area of your life. In your work, where you live, because everything should be an act of love, from what we eat to where we live to what we do to who we're with. Everything is an act of love. We just need to understand what is that act. If we have a job we hate, but it's paying our bills, so it's useful for now, it's an act of love to keep that love. It's hard love. It doesn't feel good, but it's useful for now, So one of the things I think that's best about the course, if we understand the principles, we can immediately start seeing, oh, I have love in this way, and this way, and this way. It's this kind of love. So my life is not empty of love. It actually has a lot of good things in it that I can appreciate for what they are. And so I think we can feel better as soon as the course is done when we recognize how much, all of us will recognize that we have a lot more love in our life than we thought once we understand what love is, because we're also desperate to pursue that wrong definition of love that's just going to hurt us and sidetrack us, that because we can't make an impossible love work, we feel like there's no love in our lives, And that's not how it is. We're actually all have a lot of love in our lives. And that's why all counselors, they always tell them saying, what do you appreciate? Tell me what you appreciate. Write down what you appreciate. Appreciate life. Well, in this course, I'm really giving you a real way to appreciate, not just say, well, I sort of appreciate that, but a real way of, yeah, I really appreciate it because it's actually love, And it is important to appreciate the love we already have, to see it and not neglect it or ignore it.
I do have one final question, but I'm kind of curious, Ernst, you told the story about what happened to you in 2013, and we were talking about how things go generationally, back and forth and so on. And it made me think about how your experience in that regard kind of rippled through so many other people's lives. For example, if you had not had that experience, we would not have had the Astral Vedic Astrology Apprenticeship Program. Fiona would not be here. You would not have all the students that you have out doing good work.
Yeah,
there's a lot that's happened since that moment in time that wasn't just you, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole community around it, which you can feel it, right?
That's a beautiful example of spiritual love, Ernst, that you speak about in the course, is the giving of love almost as a fountain, because the love is flowing, one can give it wanting light and love to be spread. That's it. That's the be all and end all of the intention.
Yeah.
And Ryan's just reflected beautifully that those effects go so far and so
they snowball.
Long. Yeah.
And that's the goal of Jupiter. Our goal of our life is Jupiter, and that's to do something good that has a snowball effect. And it comes out of abundance. It doesn't come out of negativity. See, if back then I had thought, well, geez, what am I going to do to make more money? And I thought I hadn't come from a point of abundance. Instead, I went from a point of abundance of, wow, there's so many things I can discover, And I went with the abundance instead of the lack. It's always important to approach life from, where can I cultivate abundance? It could be abundance of care, an abundance of love, an abundance of knowledge, an abundance of wealth. But as we collect abundance in our own lives, that's when we can really have the most fulfilling life. And that's when we have the greatest impact on other people's lives as well. And then it's natural to give a charitable love if a person develops it out of abundance. Some people develop things out of lack. And then, of course, they don't have a charitable quality with it. They don't give, they don't sacrifice for it. That's why you do get people who are financially really wealthy, but they're very selfish. They use other people, they buy sex slaves and all kinds of stuff, right? Because they never developed their financial base as a natural part of their inherent abundance. All that money they earned was was motivated by their lack. One final cool thing I want to mention about the generational effects. So the ancestral lineage is Rahu and Ketu axis. They've created an environment of our early upbringing where what your great-great-great-grandfather did affected great-grandfather, affected all the way to your dad, and that's why your dad beat you up, you know? And so there's literally this lineage of effects through our Rahu Ketu. So we follow these patterns of Rahu and Ketu. Those are our most defined patterns because of the environment of our upbringing that's ancestral based. We're born in a certain country because our ancestors got there, right? One of our ancestors ended up in that country or didn't end up leaving it, you know? And there we are being born in that environment. Rahu and Ketu have so much to do about our environment as determined by the actions of our ancestors. Now, the beautiful thing is we're all here to change, to heal that ancestral pattern, okay? We're all here to heal our Rahu Ketu axis too. You have Rahu and Ketu in angles in 1, 4, 7, or 10. That's when you get to take the ancestral karma in a new direction. You know, so the healing happens because of taking it in a completely new direction. So people have nodes and the angles, they're literally taking the way they deal with their wounds in a completely new direction. Ryan can relate to that. I can relate to that. The reason you're not supposed to fit into your family with Rahu and Ketu on the angles, because you're going in a new direction with all the ancestral bullshit. You know, you're saying, gosh, you guys have been trying to do it this way for this many generations. I'm going to do it in a whole new crazy way. And you won't grasp it. Now, when people have Rahu and Ketu in the 5th, 8th, 2nd, or 11th houses, then a person is not going to have a radical change in direction. There'll be themes that they're going to maintain. So they're healing within the themes. They're finding the true values. So say they're born in a Christian family or something. They're going to take Christian beliefs to a higher level that gives greater healing than their ancestors did with the same value system, perhaps, you know, whatever. So you're not going to see as radical change in directions. You're going to see healing along the direction that's already been plotted by the ancestors. So it's always interesting. Rahu Ketu in the angles have really hard lives. You have harder relationships when you have Rahu Ketu in 1, 4, 7, or 10. All other factors equal, you know. You have crazier stuff happen. Even if you have a good relationship, something will come along that does not make any sense, as Ryan sadly knows well about. But these things are happening because we're literally going on a new uncharted course in our relationship lives, in our growth, which has so much to do with our relationship lives. So I feel like the new directions of way the ancestral karmas are being taken is really on the shoulders of people with the nodes on angles. And it's something to really consider as a huge responsibility. That is hugely important, the development and growth we are making if you have this, because you're making the changes. You're the ones, you know. Now in 3, 6, 9, and 12, those are nice positions. Those are generally what we call easier positions for Rahu and Ketu. You tend, all other factors equal, Rahu and Ketu in those places is going to cause you a lot less relationship trauma than in 1, 4, 7, and 10, okay? Where you have the most relationship trauma. And those people, I feel there's already been a lot of healing taking place, and they're just really here to
rest up.
to experience the essence of that and take that essence. So they just have to live, and there's a lot more momentum behind them to help them live a healthier life. It's easier to have Rahu and Ketu in those houses. But for those people who are redirecting those ancestral karmas, you could say 3, 6, 9, and 12 are resolving and completing and finishing a multi-generational theme. Okay, they're really just resolving that multi-generational theme. But when Rahu and Ketu are on angles, they're taking the ancestral theme, the patterns in a whole new direction. People with this have the most capacity to change that for good or bad, though, If with nodes on angles, if people, they can take their generation down a worse path as well. Now, in this age, luckily, we're taking them down. We're moving up. We're in ascending yuga, which means, if you have Rahu and Ketu and angles, you're going to be taking your ancestral lineage in a healthier direction for them. So it's the one nice thing I could think to say as a word of solace to all people who have Rahu and Ketu and angles, because those are tough positions,
Thank you so much for the time that you have spent today talking about love, how to have more love, looking at it through astrology and lots of other lenses as well. I really appreciate everything that you've contributed and given all of us listeners and viewers plenty to digest. And I do want to recommend to people listening and watching that they go and check out Ernst's course on his YouTube channel, Ernst Wilhelm, How to Have More Love in Your Life. It's a playlist. It's got about 19 videos in it, whether you want to improve your experience of love for yourself or whether as an astrologer you want that support with your clients. I can't recommend this course highly enough. So,
well, thank you, Fiona. And that whole course is free on YouTube. I could have banked on that baby because it's a good course, but it's free.
That's good.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. See you again sometime on the Vedic Astrology Podcast.
Definitely.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.